Good afternoon, YouTube. Another video from Devil Dog for Life. Today I'm covering computer programming, specifically web-based programming, and this video is really just going to scratch the surface. Alright, well, what you'll need in web-based languages to create a website or even an online game for the iPhone or Android, etc. You're going to need at least 3 languages. You're going to need HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. JavaScript for behavior, but you can use some other high-level languages that can be compiled, such as Java. But for this tutorial, we're talking about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. HTML is a structure of any document or web-based document. You can't have a page without it. It uses tags, as you can see here. Everything in between these brackets or less than and greater than signs are tags. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and as you can see in between these style tags I have up here in the head element of the document, this is what CSS looks like. And then for our JavaScript, we have it in between the JavaScript tags right here, just before the closing, the body element here. JavaScript is your behavioral layer, and CSS is your presentation layer. In other words, HTML is your structure, CSS is how you're going to style the page or present it, and JavaScript is your behavior. So it can grab input from users and output, do dynamic things like go through a loop or whatever of images and stuff like that. It can do a lot of other things as well. It can be also used for traversing the DOM. We'll get into that in another video. Some places I wanted to go over real quick where you can learn some of these languages for free is right here in w3schools.com. It covers a large amount of stuff. It covers HTML, CSS, JavaScript, things we're talking about, server-side languages like database languages, SQL, structured query language, PHP for server-side scripting, Node.js, which is a JavaScript as well, but it runs on the server. All these other programming languages, and you can learn a lot from this page. It provides a online text editor where you can go in and try for yourself and play with the code. It's a great site to start learning. If you click on the tutorials here, you'll see it has all these different languages to learn from. Another one is Codecademy. It's free unless you subscribe for the Pro, which goes into advanced programming. And it has web development, data science. It has a lot of different stuff. You go to web development. Well, click's not working right now. Go to HTML, CSS. Scroll down, and it has different classes you can take, and also provides an editor and it tells you what you're doing. Another one, a great place to go is Codecademy. It's also free. If you come down here, you'll see right now, if you go into courses, you have all this. Down here where it says computer science or computer programming, you want to go into computer programming, and it will provide you with a lot of different options. Like this one is it wants me to continue, but I'm not going to right now. It's intro to JS drawing and animation. You have intro to HTML, CSS, making web pages, database design with SQL or a structured query language, advanced JS, game and visualizations, and many more things. Another place to go, or a great place to go to learn for free, is Mozilla. They provide what's called the Mozilla Development Network. You can learn a lot of different stuff in here. If you go to the top, click up here on Technologies, has all these different things you can learn: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, graphics, HTTP, which is for requests, different APIs or application program interfaces that are built that can be used for different things. If you click on one like say JavaScript, you go in there and it'll provide you over here in tutorials, complete beginners, intermediate, advanced, and then a full guide of pretty much everything in the language. Other references and documentation. It's a very good site. And another site you can go to is Lydia.com. However, it's not free. You may get a free trial. Like this one here says, start my free month for free. I used to have a subscription this for a year. However, I canceled it because I wasn't using it for a while. I was doing other things, and I'm probably getting ready to use it again. This is a great site. They have great videos, and they teach just about everything. And some other places that I'd like to recommend for as far as books that teach stuff is JavaScript, The Good Parts by Douglas Crockford. It's an excellent book. JavaScript, The Definitive Guide by David Flanagan, The Definitive Guide, and Learning JavaScript by Tim Wright. Those are great books for JavaScript. Without further ado, let's take a look at the structure of the web page, or the structure of a web document. So I'll go into, here we are again, into my text editor. This is just Notepad++. It's a free text editor, so where you can write code and save it. It'll save as long as you save with the right extensions. If you're in HTML, you need to save with .html extension, and we'll go into that later. .js for JavaScript extension. .css for cascading style sheets, or CSS, which is again is your presentation layer. Many of these text editors are free. Like I said, I'm just using Notepad++, but you can see I have other text editors down here. This one's Brackets. It's also free. Sublime. I'm not sure if it's still free. It is for me. I'm sure if I did an update, it may not be. And over here I have another text editor called Atom. These are great text editors. They highlight color to let you know where there's errors and whatnot when you're running your page. So as you see up top right now, I have three different documents up here. I started. We're in the index.html. That's your HTML page. I have a CSS page with nothing in it, and a JavaScript page called behavioral with nothing in it yet. So if we look at the top of the document, everything you need for the document, pretty much this is pretty basic for just getting started with a HTML page. However, this is all you would need if you're creating a game, a website. You're going to want to put more things in here, like maybe more metadata up here for refreshing the page and whatnot. So I'll kind of like try to go over everything a little bit in detail. I don't want to get too detailed in this tutorial. It's supposed to be somewhat quick. The current specifications, I'm not going to get into that too much either. That's put in effect by the W3 Consortium. Probably said that wrong. But they're the ones that, like, when new changes are made to the languages, they have to go through and make specifications so that they'll pretty much work across the browsers the same, like what's going to actually go into the languages and be used. However, some browsers still implement stuff the way they like. So you may have to, like, say for Internet Explorer, or the old ones, you have to write different JavaScript than you would for another browser for it to render the same, to work the same. Put in, which I'm not going to get into now, but you'd have to put in like an if-else statement for, hey, run this. If it doesn't work in this browser, then do this for this other browser, so that it will run correctly. However, there's many libraries out there, like jQuery, for instance, which is a JavaScript library written in JavaScript, which is cross-browser friendly, which allows it to allows you not to have to write that different JavaScript for different browsers. It kind of works the same across all popular browsers. And by browsers, I mean Google's a browser, Opera's a browser, Mozilla's a browser, and Internet Explorer is also a browser. I'll kind of go through this stuff. The HTML and the tags is here, is your structure of your page. Down here in the script tag, where I have this JavaScript, this is known as client-side scripting. It runs in the browser itself, so on the client, not on the server. It runs right in the browser. And generally, you should put it right before the closing body tag under any other code in your page, because the browser tries to run the JavaScript first. So if you have a variable pointing to, say, this p tag here, and the p tag hasn't been read yet by the browser, that hasn't been created yet, and you're going to run into errors. So placing it down here or in some type of onload function, so that it tells the JavaScript not to run, or not to run any scripts until all the HTML and CSS is run. So a good old rule of thumb is just to put it down here, or if you have external documents, what I'll get into later for JavaScript, to put them down here at the bottom. But you can put them in the head tag, and like I said, you just have to put it on on a load event, or you can use jQuery to use a document.ready event, which is going to make and put all your JavaScript in between those that event, and then your JavaScript's going to run as soon as the page is fully loaded. So as soon as all the HTML, CSS, or whatever else needs images as well needs to load. So again, the HTML5 specification is the current specification for HTML. It's a lot shorter. This is all you need to tell the browser that it's HTML5. It used to be a huge declaration with like if you go to HTML4 specification and 3, which you'll see in some web pages still, it was a huge, like 3-4 paragraphs declaration of a bunch of different stuff, telling the browser a bunch of different stuff. And then we tell the page here it's HTML, and every tag has just about every tag that has an open tag also has, with this backslash, has a closing tag. You have some self-closing tags, but I'm not going to get into that too much right now. Like, for instance, if you place an image into your document, it has a self-closing tag, so you don't need to place the word image in between the brackets with a backslash for a closing tag. It would look like this. So I'll just put it up above here. This would be if I was to place an image. Source would be the attribute. Then the image, whatever I named it, let's say I named it, let's see, I don't know, coding. Say I named my image coding for whatever reason, and then dot whatever format it uses, so JPEG. It could be a different format, but I'm using JPEG. And then to close it, it would just be a backslash in that. So that's an open-ended, considered an open-ending tag, which means it doesn't require a closing tag. There is no closing tag. There is no closing tag like this right here. For the most part, most tags have an opening and closing tag. So getting into this again, I'll bring it up. Here's the title. I just named this now. That goes in the head document. Anything rendered in between the head tag and the closing head tag does not show up in the body of the document. So in other words, it does not show up on your website. So most of the stuff you don't see. If I put a favicon up here, which I'll go over in a minute, then you would see that, but it wouldn't be in your page. Title will show up in the title bar. So if I open this up, the title of mine is Learning Web-Based Programming. If you look, if I go right here, this one right here is my page that you see right now of the document we were just looking at, and right here you see Learning Web-Based Programming. This is the default for Google right now. This is where the favicon are gone. I don't have one in mind, so hold back down. And then everything that you see here, all this code's been written in the opening and the closing body tag of the page. So if I start going through my metadata here, this is the character set, the current one we use for here for the US. I'm not going to get into that right now. When I go into HTML tutorials later, I'll cover this stuff a little bit more. But basically, metadata doesn't show up. It's used for different things. Like right here, I have a name, a description, a content, YouTube tutorials. That's what this site's doing. Well, that's what I named it. And then keywords. So if I once I put the site online or using a URL and put it online, I want to search. So when people type in HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, it makes my site more searchable. The name, the meta name for the author would just be whatever your name is. If you want to put your name in there, the author of your page, just put Devil Dog for life. And then you have your external links. This is what's called external documents. This one right here, you see it saved right here. It's called presentation.css. That would be an external CSS file or document. And I'm linking it. Under here, I'm linking a script file. So this would be an external JavaScript file. So if you look at the presentation, going back to the CSS, up here, if I click this tag, there's nothing in it, but this would be what I'm linking. Whatever code I write here in CSS would link to my HTML file over here. And same with the JavaScript. Whatever I wrote in JavaScript over here would link. And I'm going to show you that a little bit later. And going down, we have a style tag, which is also in the head. Any CSS that's not external, this would be called embedded CSS or internal CSS, will go between these style tags, and it always goes in the head. And then you write all your CSS. This is what CSS looks like. This right here is grabbing the whole body of the document or the web page, and all I'm doing right now is telling it, as everything I put in there that prints the screen, I want the margin to move left by 2%. And then this is some CSS for the button I have on my page that you saw that was blue. The button right here, that's blue. And then this just tells it when I want to hover, I want a shadow behind it. Which, if I go back real quick, you'll see as I hover over it, there's a shadow. Right. So, keep going down, you close the style tag after your CSS, your embedded CSS is all done or whatnot, and then you close the head. Then you start the body of the document. This is between this body tag and this body tag down here. There you go. Why is it not highlighting both? There we go. And between these two body tags is everything that's going to show up on your page. So if you go down, I'll take this image out because there is no image. Actually, let me save it and rerun it, and you'll see that since it's not an actual image anywhere, it should show a thing pointing to no image. The image will not show up. So let me go back, refresh, and there, see, this up here would have been my image. If I had an image, there was a real image, it would show up in here, and I may or may not show that later. So going back through, so if you go down here now, you see I have a paragraph tag right here, and I wanted to go and go over what's called inline. So this is inline CSS. It's written right into a paragraph. You'll see it in some websites, some people doing it. If you're just doing it for a few things, then it's not a problem, but it can become a nightmare if you're using inline and for every tag and whatnot, and it generates a lot more code, and it can slow down the rendering of your page, especially if you have many pages, depending how big your site gets and how many users there are. So it's best to grab the paragraph and write the CSS either up here in the head, and even better yet, do an external site CSS page that it can link to. So here, I'm using the attribute style to give it a font size of 50 pixels. So you see here, this is what's rendering this paragraph, hello world, and it's in 50 pixels. So see here, if I change the font size to 20, save it, and refresh the page, you'll see it gets a lot smaller. It goes down to 20 pixels. Pixelated. You can also use percentages instead of not percentages for font, but you can use like EM, and there's a couple other ways to do size. Pixels is thought of bad practice. I'm not going to go into all that, so I do HTML videos later. It also has another attribute. Well, the style attribute doesn't have another attribute, but also in the style attribute, I'm using the color property and giving it a value of red to change that to red. So if I change this to blue, and save it, refresh, you'll see that now the hello world is blue. So I'm going to change that back to 50 pixels. Save. As we go down, I have a button tag, and it has another attribute called ID. The IDs point to a specific ID I named to use in CSS. I call it BTN for button. That's what short. The shorter you're better with your names, the better. As you see it highlighted up here in my CSS up top, you do an ID with this right here. I forget what you call it right now. I just can't think of it. It's like a hashtag, but that's probably the wrong term. I just can't think of it right now. And that's how you would do ID. Then the name of it, and then open and close curly braces, and then whatever properties and values you want to run in between that are built into CSS, like for padding, color, background. These are things you just have to learn to memorize. Font family, is you know, separated. Certain things, when there's two words, CSS likes to separate them with dashes. So I have another attribute called onClick, and I'm pointing it to change text function, which is a JavaScript function, name function I created, that is going to run on here when you click the button on the page. And the button's name, I gave it a name of run. You see the closing button tag here. So this is out of very bad practice. However, you'll see this online too, and I'm just showing you to teach you what inline is. This is inline JavaScript right here. And up here with the style tag, this is inline CSS. And then you have inline HTML too. But it's, for the most part, it's not a bad practice unless you're just doing it to, like, say you have a canvas tag and you want to make the canvas a certain size and you only have one canvas. So you can create a game or some type of animation in the canvas tag. Then you might size that one canvas here, but if you have multiple canvases, it's just better to size it here and then it's size, you know, up in CSS or somewhere else or in JavaScript, and that way it sizes it for all of them. You're writing a lot less code. So now if we go down further, I have a script tag, HTML tag, where I'm running all my inline. Now this is, I'm sorry, not inline, internal. This is internal or embedded JavaScript. It's embedded into this page or document. It's not inline. It's not within a tag like these are. It's in between these script tags, but it's not within the tag itself to do one specific thing, like this inline CSS or this inline JavaScript right here that runs this function called change text on this button. And so I'll kind of explain this page. There's really not much into it. Like I said, I have a paragraph tag that something happens. I have a button that ID that something's going to happen when I click it. It's going to run this change text. We go down in the script into the JavaScript here, and I have a variable, and I named it para-element. It's best to try to name it to whatever you're doing or whatever, so it's easier for you to read later when you get a lot of code, and it's easier for other programmers to read if they're looking at your document. And right here, I just have it set to a built-in thing. It's actually quite newer, I believe, called document.query selector. It's just selecting this paragraph tag. You also have document.get tags by name. And when you get them by name, document by name, then it's going to run through. If you put a P in there and you have multiple P tags in there, it's going to run through all of them. So then you would have to specify, put it in brackets because it acts like it's in an array, a 0, or if you want the very first paragraph tag and you want to do something with it, or you just want to catch the second one, which would be a 1, everything starts at 0. Or you have to run it through, if you want to catch them all and just modify them all with something, like say you want to turn all the paragraphs blue, then you would grab it like that and then run it through some type of for loop using JavaScript. And I have another variable that grabs a button element, and that's all it's doing is it's grabbing these elements here and storing it in these variables here. Now a variable is nothing more than a container for data and different data types to store something to access later. So here I'm taking that button element, which knows it's the button on the page here, and I'm attaching a handler, a listener, and a handler to it, like .onClick, and I'm creating a function here, the syntax or rules for a function. And in here all I'm doing is telling it and grabbing this paragraph variable here and appending something else that's built in it, text content, and making it equal to hello YouTube. So here when I click the button, all that happens is this runs. This new sentence runs. And it's back. So if we go into it, go back into the page, or refresh it, back to my 50, and if I hit run, hello YouTube. So it just runs that function. Alright, so let's go into a little bit more. Let's take off this right here, this inline JavaScript that's running this function, because that's bad practice. We don't need that. And instead, we'll just call the same function, change text, down here. And this is how you would, what's called calling a function in JavaScript, which I'll get into when I do a video on functions later. But it's the name of the function, you open brackets. If you have no parameters, which are arguments, like right here there would be, if I had something called name, say, or 2 or whatever. That would be a parameter to run, which acts as a placeholder and a variable for that's changeable or dynamically changeable for whatever function I do. And then I could pass an argument in here that's going to store the value of this parameter or variable. So that would be the new value down here, the argument. And up here would be the parameter, which would be like kind of like the property, but it's a variable, like a placeholder. So if I run this now, since I took it out there, it should run fine. Because when I click the button, it's going to see that it's calling it here. Oh, my bad. No, it's going to run it without me clicking the button, because I'm calling it here with not in the syntax of anything. So another way to do this, to call this function, here is what I could do. Just place it within the function. Call it within here. Oops. Oh, that may or may not work because that does not look right to me, but I'm going to try it anyway. Oh, it still works. So I'm calling the function within. So I'm calling or invoking this function. It's also called it. You'll hear people say invoking it because you're invoking the function for it to run within this function here that's attached to this handler or listener. This function here has no name, so it's what's called an anonymous function, and it's running this named function right here, which I called change text. Which is honestly my bad, because I don't even have a function named that. So it's running because I'm just telling it to run this, and it has no name. So let's save that, since I don't want to confuse anybody, and see if it still works. And it still works because it doesn't need that name. So what's going on here? So even though I had it in there before, it wouldn't run, but now I was trying to show inline functions. So what I had here is these 2 backslashes is just a way to comment it out. If you have one line and you want to comment it out, meaning that it'll be ignored by the browser or won't run that code. And another way, if you have a lot of stuff you want to comment out in JavaScript, you would do this. Another backslash with a star, and then under everything you want to comment out, a star and a backslash again. So this whole block of code, that's why it turned green, is a comment wouldn't be red now, and then now my button would not work. File, save, refresh, and then when I click the button, nothing happens. So let's get that back. So if I wanted my function to be named and then run, so let's do it right now. Function change text, and I create a function called change text. Let's take this out and put it in our change function. Cut, tab, Control V. There. We don't need this. And then instead of having it equal this anonymous function or function with no name, we're going to set the onClick equal to our function that we're going to run, and hopefully it will work as it should. Change text. We have no errors. It should not run automatically until you click the button and refresh it. And it ran right away. So if this was in a AddEventListener, which is another way to do it, it wouldn't run right away like that. I'm not sure why it's doing that. So what I can do now is just create that anonymous function again. Close it. And then just this one right here is just being invoked inside this anonymous function when the button is clicked. So now it won't run automatically to say hello YouTube or whatever I have. Save. back in here, refresh. So it's not running automatically. When I click it, then it runs that function, that change function, or change text. Another way to do it, like I said, the add event listener, and this is the preferable way to do a lot of things. But if you're just running like one function, and you're not going to be running it a lot of times, it's going to be used once, and the other option's a good option. But this listener does here is allows you to attach many different functions to one listener. So you can attach many functions to run for the buttons at once. So I'm going to cut this. And so when you do this, we'll put here in between quotes, you put what the event you want to listen for. So we're listening for a click. It could be different. It could be an onload event or any type of other events that are built in to JavaScript. Think of some other ones. There's a lot of them. So we're listening for a click event, and then we just put the name of our function, change text. However, we don't do. Well, maybe that's why it didn't work last time. We don't put these in there because that invokes the function. We just want to reference it, so we just put the name of the function, and it works just fine this way. I'll go into explain this way more when I go into functions, but for now I'm just trying to cover a little bit of everything. And let's see here. So we'll go back in here, refresh it, and I broke it. So let's fix it real quick. Click, change text, because listener is spelled wrong. So there you go, add listener. Save. Try it again. Refresh. And it's still not working. Why is it broken? Add event listener. Oh, I still spelled it wrong. Not having a great day. And look, even my text editor is trying to correct it for me. Alright, so save. Spelled right now, it's not working. This is why it's not working, because I have this down here. Any little thing that you have that shouldn't be there, like I had a bracket under here, but it doesn't go to any function or anything, it's gonna break your code in JavaScript. So you need to make sure it's correct, and there's ways to debug it. So now it's working. Hello, YouTube. So if you want to come in here, the way to debug your code will be the console. There's a console. It may render a little bit different or be look a little bit different, and depending on the browser you're in, you go to develop. In this one, you go to more tools. Then you go to developer tools for Google. On IE, it's going to be looked a little bit different, but everyone's got a built-in console for JavaScript. Also, see the HTML in the page. You can actually go on any web page and kind of look through this stuff and see a lot of stuff. Console right here for JavaScript. Sources, network. I don't know too much about this, but it shows like URLs and all that stuff, and it's basically like more analytical and stuff for performance. But we're concerned with console right now. So on console, this one says here it's not affecting what I'm doing right now. It says failed to load resource file not found behavioral, because it's looking for my behavioral JavaScript file, because I have it within right here. So what that's doing is telling me this link to this CSS file that is external and this JavaScript file, we can't find it, which it doesn't have anything in it right now. I don't know why it's not being able to find it, but maybe because it doesn't have anything in it. Well, I'll go back. So failed to load resource. It's not loading because there's nothing in the file. Error, file not found. Error, file not found. When you're doing it, when I go into the directory, how you should set up your web page or game, build a directory for it, it'll become more apparent. But anyway, we haven't written any code yet, so it's not a problem yet for us. In this console, if you had other errors, it would debug them for you, sort of. It would kind of let you know different things that's wrong, like, if something comes back undefined, it's usually like a variable that you fail to declare, or a variable that there's something else wrong in the code. It hasn't been you're trying to access a variable that hasn't been read yet or rendered yet before it could be rendered, or something like that, or you didn't initialize the variable. Never gets initialized with any type of value, whether it's being initialized dynamically or by hard coded in like a static number or string, or whether it's it's called like literal, like literally put in there. And let me go back. I don't want to get into too much with all this. So what do I want to go into right now? Let's go into the file structure real quick. So we'll go into the file. So here's where I have everything saved. The presentations here, the behaviors here. This is the JavaScript. Presentation CSS. So like I said, those are empty files. It should be able to read them because they're not in any other folders or anything. They're with it. So I don't understand that. But how you want to do your directory, new, we'll create some files. Folder. And we'll just call this JS for now, for JavaScript. And then I'll create another folder, new. And we'll call this, I'll just call it Cascade for cascading style sheets. So I'll take my presentation, which is CSS, and I'll put it in the CSS folder. Move here. And I'll take my behavior and I'll put it in JS. If I can grab it. Oops, what just happened? That was not cool. I don't know where it went, so let me shut this. The files on the computer exist anymore. Do you want to keep them in there? Yes. So fix this real quick. Find out what just happened. I have no idea where they went. So we're going to look at the desktop real quick. Maybe somehow they jumped to that. No, they did not. So I'm going to create the folders again. It's really weird. I don't know where I put them. So new folder. JS. Oops. Fingers. JS. New. I apologize. This computer is really slow. It's probably time to purchase a new laptop. We'll say here JS, and then what do we say? Cascade. So there's our folder. So we're going to go back in here and we're going to resave these. Presentation. File. Save as. Presentation.css. And we're going to click the Cascade to save it in that file. Save in that file, go on the behavior. We're going to resave that one too. Save as behavior.js. And it's very important to use the proper extensions. And then if you have a text editor that lets you pick like certain things, like here, depending on the code you're writing, it'll give you the extensions and all that. You pick that. And if you're using a very basic text editor like the basic Notepad one that's been around for 30 years or whatever with Microsoft, it doesn't have this. It just has text file or all files. You save it as all files, or it will save it as a text, and your code will not run. So we got JavaScript for there. Click the folder, save it in there. I'll go back into our file structure, and let's click JS. And we see our behavior saved there, and our Cascade, our presentation, our CSS file saved there. So click out of here. So now that they're files, so to be able to, we have to show the full file path, or our HTML page right here won't be able to access them. So where we have them up here, we're linking the right here, the CSS. We have to get the full file path. So href is just referencing that file. Well, it's in a folder that we call Cascade. So Cascade, that's we spell right. So we have to put in there a backslash. So this is basically saying, hey, I want you to grab this folder Cascade, and then I want you to grab this document that's in Cascade, so we can read the code in it and render it and use it in this document. So we go down here to our JavaScript too, source and behavior, and right here in behavior we named it JS. We'll put the file path as well, JS backslash behavior 64. Oh, I don't know what that 64 is there. That's probably why I couldn't find that file. I don't know about this other one because it doesn't seem to have any errors saved. So now going into it. So we want to use these external. We don't have no CSS or anything. So we'll go CSS first. So what we here is we'll take the CSS first. And what we'll do is we'll cut it because we don't need it in this page anymore. And we'll go to our presentation so it'll still run for our button. And for, to move the margin left 2%. For our HTML page, our document, our structure. Control V, paste, and now we have to resave it. And I'll just go to Save As too to make sure it saves it again the same way. .css. Save. Yes. Overwrites it. Oh, the file is already opened in Notepad++. No. That's not. That's what I'm in right now. Why isn't it saving it? There's only one. I only see one instance of Notepad++. Why isn't it saving it? Let's see. Let's just save it. See if it does that. I should have done that. So let me make sure presentation seems to be spelled right. So I'll take these style tags out because we no longer need them. The CSS is no longer, and we'll save it. That's probably why. I probably thought it was still here since I cut and I didn't go back and save. So let's go back to presentation just to make sure, and I'm going to save as, see if it lets me save it as presentation.css. Save. It still does already exist. Yes, I want to replace it. Error file. I don't know what's going on with this text editor right now. It's acting a little funky, but let's go back now and see, render the page again. Refresh it, see if it still shows up the same. Yes, and everything's the same. So it's reading it from the other page. So if we go back to the presentation and comment this out, then you pretty much comment CSS. You can comment multiple lines out the same way as JavaScript. They use the same syntax. So star and then backslash at the end, and it's all comment out. So if I hit save, that essentially it won't read any of that code. It's like that code's not there. So when I go back to this index, if I go back into refresh my page, my CSS is all gone, which you might not have noticed a big change because this is being told in line, in the paragraph tag itself in line. But you notice the button lost all its colors, it got smaller, the text got smaller, it's not there, and the margin moved back to the left side. It's no longer going to the right by 2%. So if I go back now to my presentation, and I take these comments out. And comments aren't just used to, put in there so you don't want certain code to run. You do that from time to time when you're testing and whatnot, but it's also important to comment on what's going on. Like in your JavaScript, hey, this is a function, it does this, and etc. Or this is what this is. Or this is a constructor function that does this. Well, I'm not going to get into all that stuff right now. So file, save again. Already did. So let's go back in our page, refresh it, and you see the run button is blue again. It's got on hover, it's got the box shadow behind it, and all those properties and values have been restored. So let's go back. We go back to our index, and we're going to take out the JavaScript now. It's embedded or internal JavaScript, and we're going to remove it because we don't need it here. And this is really how you should keep all your code. The different languages should be separated completely. That's the best rule of thumb. Not embedding, only embedding it within the HTML and script tags when you have to. There may be different reasons for that. There's a lot that goes into even stuff I'm learning that goes into HTTP requests and other stuff. But for the most part, you want to try to keep your documents external. And I'll explain something real quick before I cut. Well, I'll just cut it. Cut. It's read in the order it shows up. So the browser reads it in the order it shows up. So it'll read this line, then it'll go this line, and this line, and read and then your JavaScript. So say you have a JavaScript that's based off of something in the page. Say you have, here we go, explain it this way. Say you have another script page. Copy. With a different name up here. Control V. And it's, I don't know, something else. It's, I don't know, call it main. So your main, spelled it wrong. Caps lock. Main. And that's your main JavaScript page that all other JavaScript talks to. So if this was your main page, and this had stuff that was based off functions within this page, then you're fine because it's going to run this one first, and then it's going to run this script. But however, if your main page is below it, then you're probably going to run into errors because your main page has got functions and stuff in it, but this one depends on it. They haven't been created here yet. They haven't run because it hasn't gotten to this line, so it hasn't run this. So therefore, this doesn't know where to find them. Find anything, and it's going to throw all sort of errors. Now, I'm going to get rid of this main page because we only need the one script page. behavior, and I'm going to hit file save. And I'm going to take out these script tags because we don't really need them right now. File save. And I'm going to go to the behavior of the JavaScript page called behavior, Control V. Oh, didn't paste everything I cut. Now I got to type it over. I don't know what I did. Oh, because I copied before I pasted over here. Alright, so well, we can run a function again, or create a function again real quick. And put a name, change text. And what change text is going to do is going to grab that para element dot text content, and it's going to give it a new paragraph, and we'll just tell it to do something else. Like, we'll make the sentence, isn't coding a lot of fun? So now we have that. We have to call that. We have to put a button in here again. Button dot add event listener. Takes two. An event listener is built in. It takes two parameters. One in between quotes, which is going to be the event it's listening for. And the code it's going to run, which is change text. And if all is good, let's see if that works. So we save that now. We'll save the other file save because we don't want it to try to read code that's not there. It's already saved. Okay. So go back in here, refresh, and let's see if it works. Does not work. Error. Let's see. File not found. Why is the file not found? So I'm going to go through this real fast. Source js.behavior.js. Let's name that something else. I don't know why it's not finding it. Save, and then we'll rename it within the file structure of the directory itself. Rename. Alright. Behavior is right there. Go in again. Alright, so a file, we'll save it, save as, save it again. So it looks like it's spelled right. .js. We'll save it in here. Yes, it already exists. Yes, I want to overwrite it. Hopefully that fixed the problem. Oh, still can't find the file. I do not know why. This is embarrassing when you're trying to do something quick. There's a lot to go over. Why isn't that showing me it? Behavior. Is it spelled right? Alright. Behavior. Behavior. It's spelled right. I don't understand why it's having trouble finding it. Well, let's put it in the body tag because this should be working. Cut. And then we'll put it right here for the closing body tag. And hopefully that will fix it, but I don't think that is the problem. I think I'm making some kind of stupid error, or for some reason something's button is not defined. Okay, is it reading it now though? Button runtime, yeah, because I took the button out as well. Oh, and I took the P out, so let's put that back in here too. So L equals document dot query selector, and selecting the P element. Just copy this. Copy. just a button element. And grab the button element. Save. And now they should be defined. Oh. No. Event listener. Save. And let's see. So I'll go back in here. Refresh. Why is change text not defined? I might be making some pretty stupid errors today, but I know in an event listener you do not call it in here. So function change text URL.text content. This should be working. Click event change text. Well, anyway, you get the idea. Let's just let's comment out a single comment out that line so it won't run. Let's just try running, automatically running by calling or invoking the function change text. Save it. Refresh this. Yep, and it ran it. Isn't coding a lot of fun? So it's reading the external JavaScript document. Now I don't know why it was telling me something a minute ago that wasn't defined in my add event listener. So let's go back and take a look at that real quick. Button L document.query selector. I don't have any errors there. Button L add event listener. That's spelled right. I'm listening for a click event. I'm calling it. Oh, here it is, because I didn't do a capital T on my change text function. So essentially it's looking for, it can't find the name. So I take that out, take this comment out, so that it will run this code. File, save, go back in, refresh it, hello world, click the button, and it works. Isn't coding a lot of fun? So that's pretty much how you do all that. We've covered a lot here in the index very quickly. There's maybe a few stuff that I probably should touch on that you're seeing in this document. Like I showed you how to comment single lines for, say, JavaScript. I'll just go here underneath the document. It's a single line for JavaScript, so whatever, well, it's not going to run here, it's not in the script tag. So let's just put a script tag under here just to show you. Don't ever put a script tag after your document's closed if you're doing stuff. This is just for a demonstration. So a single comment, hello, there, whatever this is just nothing, but I'm putting a string here to show you that it's just how to do a single comment. This code wouldn't run if it was code. The single comment, anything on this line is going to be commented out and it's not going to be read in the browser. So that's a single line for JavaScript and CSS. And then if you have multiple lines you want to code out, it's going to be the backslash, the star, backslash, star, and then then a star first, and then a backslash. So whatever you write in here on multiple lines, skip down right here is going to be commented out, and that's the same for CSS and JavaScript. And I want to cover this again real quick because it's different in HTML. As you might have noticed up here, this green writing up here, this is within the HTML document. These are commented out. It's not code. It's, like I said, just lines that tell you what's going on. Like here, I wrote internal or embedded cascading style sheets because earlier I had my style tags in here, and I had if you remember, I had the CSS right here and the head element running in here instead of in this presentation document here. So go back here. So this is how you do the comments. It's like a less than, or a bracket, less than sign. What do you call this thing? I don't know what you call this thing. I use it all the time. But that thing, and then two lines, exclamation point. There you go. Exclamation point, two dotted lines, and then whatever code you want to comment out, or whatever you want to write to tell the next programmer what you're doing, and then two lines and a closing bracket or a greater than sign. And that's how you do all comments when you're in HTML, in the HTML of the document, not within a style tag or within a script tag. So take these script tags out. This video is getting way too long, longer than I wanted it to. Well, I think that's pretty good. I mean, that kind of covered the three basic languages and covered inline, uh, how to do inline CSS and also inline JavaScript. We didn't really do any inline HTML, but if we did, it would just be like here. If we let's like a width. Let me put a div in here, and a div is just a container. So close div. Oops, caps lock. Oh, well, let me just take that image out. Somehow I got there and there was no image there anyway. Maybe I'll show that real quick before I'm done. So div. So I have this empty container. There's nothing in it. It won't show up on the page. It has no color. It has nothing set to it. So I can give it an ID equals container or box. It's common though if you have a main div and you're running a bunch of CSS in there. When I go over HTML and you know how you format your page, I'll go more in detail to call it container or wrapper, and you'll have multiple other divs for organizing your page. But we'll just call it container for now, or we could even just call it box since nothing's going to be in it. Box and yeah, my box. So yeah, be proper and put that in between a paragraph tag in the box. So here you have the div, or the HTML tag itself, the element, the div element, and then here you have an ID, which is an attribute of this element, and then we're giving it an ID or a value of box. File, save. So if we go into our CSS, we can use this to access the ID of box. Then we can write our width of the box. We'll just say, let's say 200 pixels. Our height of the box, and we'll say 200 pixels, make it nice and square. And let's say our background color, and we'll say it's red. So that should print a red box to the screen. Save. It's in our external, this box, we're building it in our external CSS page. So I go back up to my red page, refresh, and there's my box. It's got no padding or anything else right now, that's why the paragraph shows it there. We could give it padding too if we wanted to. Let's just do that real quick. We'll say padding, and we'll give it to all sides, so we'll say 1%. That might be, well, it doesn't matter. 1%. Save it. Refresh. And now you can see it's got some padding. 1% padding, that's why the paragraph moved down and it moved a little bit over to the right. So that's your box. So we want to do that inline on the other page, at least the width and height. So we'll take these out, cut, and we'll just leave this background color. Since now we'll save, you'll see the box will disappear because it doesn't have a width or height to render this red or do anything else. So I'm going to go back to the page, refresh. Well, I guess by default it's giving it something. Oh, because of my padding. So anyway, so we got the box. So we want to change the width and the height inline using just HTML. So we come back in the div. It's got an ID of box. So right here, after that, we put width equals, and then quotes, and then we'll put width 200 pixels. And after the closing quote, space, height equals 200 pixels. Width looks right. All right. File, save, render. Refresh. What did I do wrong? It should be in there. Width 200 pixels. Right. That should be working. You know, you're able to do HTML without the style, and that would be CSS. But I really never do this. But this should be working because I've used it before for like Canvas and stuff to give it a width and a height within HTML. But I generally don't do this type of stuff. I write everything either CSS or JavaScript. And so I'm not sure why. These are known. When it's HTML, it's in here. This is an attribute of HTML. The width, the height is another attribute, just like the ID. And we're giving it a value. And I don't know why. Let's take out the pics. But it should be rendering just fine. And it did absolutely nothing. There's no errors over here. I don't know why it's not changing the size. But anyway, without further ado, because I want to wrap this up, and I'll go over it more, and I'll look back into it to figure out what the error is, but I'm not really concerned with it right now. We're just covering a lot of stuff. Just know that, you know, this is considered inline HTML to do something to this element. And that's what's inline for HTML. It's the only thing I didn't cover before. I covered using the style tag inline within the whatever element, which if I did here, I would just say style equals, and then I would write it just like I'd write it in the CSS page. Everything would be in quotes. Width, this would go away in width. I have this. It doesn't need these. Fix. It'd be just done like that, and then be separated by this wouldn't be here either. It'd be like that. This wouldn't be here. PX. Let's see if that works. I don't generally ever write inline. I've done it once or twice for, like I said, Canvas. And it did something, but it didn't do what it was supposed to do. Oh, because my height's still messed up. Yeah, I use my, that should fix it. Save. Refresh. And there you go, the box is back. Using inline CSS with a style tag attribute. So, covered a lot in this tutorial. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything I wanted to touch on. There was something else I could have sworn that I wanted to touch on. Anyway, so just to recap again, so I'm going to close this video out now. This is the specification HTML5. It's like a HTML declaration and tell the web browser that it's HTML5. Then you need an HTML tag and a closing body HTML tag. You got a head tag. Everything in the head tag that goes in the head tag is going to be any metadata. So it doesn't show up in your page or the body of your page. It shows up. The only thing that's going to show up is going to show up on the tab for the title up top to tell people what the page is. You know, if you put a favicon under here, an image, you do an image source for a favicon to show up. Right. You know, put a little picture next to where it says learning, web programming, or whatever your page is called. This character set is just what we use in US, UTF-8. I'll go through it in more detail in other tutorials when I do HTML. This one called name description, just in the content kind of tells the browsers and searchers, web searchers, and crawlers, or whatever you want to call them, what the content's going to be. Keywords helps those web searchers and crawlers to move you be more searchable once your site's posted on a URL or accessible on the internet. People will type in these words in the search, and then your page, depending on how popular and this or that, where these words will show up. It will show up somewhere in the Google search or Opera search or Mozilla search, depending on what browser you're using. To recap again, all the code is web-based, so it's run within the browser. The browser has a built-in stuff to run code and parse code and all that. It always tries to run JavaScript first. That's why it's best to put it at the bottom of your body tag if you're going to do internal, as well as external, to put your scripts towards the bottom. But this is also becoming thought of as old practice. I still think it's best practice because you can put all your scripts to run in a document.ready that waits for the whole page and all the images to load before it runs that or parses that JavaScript. You know, so, and then let's see here. So, and then the author is just me, and then this links my external CSS page. Up here, the behavior, and then down here, the script source. Down towards the body tag just links to this external JavaScript to run those functions for the button. And then, you know, everything else, as you go down, you close the head, then between the body tags, that's everything you want to show up in your page. It's going to be rendered in the page that people can actually see and whatnot. So, right, and this is a very simple page. All it has is a paragraph tag, a div tag for my box, another paragraph tag that's within the div that prints it inside that box, and a button element tag to render a button to the screen. And then within the body, it reads external JavaScript source to run those functions for that button. Alright, if you like my videos, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.